Here is a summary of the story Birth by A.J. Cronin. Dr. Andrew Manson walked slowly towards his house. It was almost midnight. He was lost in thought after a stressful evening with Christine, the woman he loved. He found Joe Morgan, a driller, pacing up and down outside his house, waiting for him. Joe Morgan was relieved to see the doctor because his pregnant wife, Susan, was expecting the baby before time. The baby would be the Morgans' first one after 20 years of marriage. Andrew, who was preoccupied with his thoughts until then, hurried with Joe to the Morgans' house. Joe stayed outside the house as Andrew went in. He sounded worried, but expressed his faith in Andrew. Andrew walked into a bedroom where Susan's mother and a midwife waited beside the bed where Susan lay. Andrew realized that it would be some time before the child was born, as did Susan's mother. The old woman, anxious that he might leave, offered to make him a cup of tea. As Andrew drank tea in the kitchen downstairs, he realized that this case would need all his attention. He decided to stay till the baby was born. An hour later, he checked his patient's progress and came back to sit by the kitchen fire with the old woman. His thoughts wandered to the unhappy couples he knew. But he still believed that if he and Christine married, theirs would be a happy marriage. His rational mind and his sensitive heart seemed to be in conflict about this. As he sat there, deep in thought, he was startled when the old lady said that Susan did not want Andrew to use chloroform if it would harm the baby. The old lady said that the mother, and indeed the entire family, was desperately awaiting the baby's arrival. Andrew assured her that neither the baby nor the mother would be harmed. At 3:30, Andrew went upstairs to help with the birth. After an hour of struggle, at dawn, the child was born lifeless. Andrew was horrified. He was torn between his desire to revive the baby and his responsibility towards the suffering mother. He turned to save the mother, who was in a terrible condition. He administered an injection and managed to revive her. He then turned to the baby. The nurse had placed it under the bed. Andrew picked up the child and saw how white it looked. He realized that the baby was unconscious because of lack of oxygen and remembered the treatment used in a similar case. He decided to try it to save the baby. He asked the midwife to quickly fetch hot and cold water. When the water arrived, he started to plunge the baby alternately into the hot and cold baths. 15 minutes later, the infant was still not breathing, and Andrew started to despair. Susan's mother and the midwife stared at him in shock and dismay. Andrew recollected the family's desperate longing for a child. He persevered, rubbing the child with a rough towel and pressing and releasing the baby's chest to get it to breathe. And then, wonder of wonders, the baby began to breathe. It let out its first cry and slowly turned pink. Andrew handed over the baby to the stunned midwife and saw that Susan's mother was praying soundlessly. He then went downstairs exhausted. He assured Joe that both mother and child were all right. As Andrew walked back home, his thoughts were in a whirl. Everything that he had done so far in Blaney was forgotten. He felt that he had finally done something meaningful.